Very briefly, we are here to discuss the impact this pandemic has had in economies in general and small businesses or MSME sector in particular. So idea is for us to put our thoughts together. We'll just give you some broad data points on how this has impacted uh, globally or India and how has market parameters changed while we still continue, while the situation evolves, is still fluid. We will put our thoughts around what we believe companies should be doing, some of the best practices to stay afloat in these testing times. We also have a small presentation. The idea is not to get into a very detailed presentation, but very briefly on what we believe we could put together, put forward on the table, and then we'll open up for Q&A session in the end. So to start with, yes, we are still in the middle of this pandemic, which kind of broke out beginning of this year. It has impacted one and everybody. I think it's been acknowledged fairly widely. The impact is severe, more than any other event of this magnitude that we have seen in our lifetimes. Initially a lot of parallels were drawn with financial crisis, but let me tell you, it is far deeper, far more severe than financial crisis we saw about 10 years back. It kind of impacted only one sector, which was financial, but this has impacted just about everybody. It is very difficult to put numbers or impact in number sense, but to put things in perspective, all I can say is initially it was thought that 2.5% of world GDP is going to get impacted by this, while estimates are still being redrawn or recalibrated as we move along. If one were to put these numbers in perspective, we are talking about 86, 87 billion or trillion dollars of world economy, and initial estimates was that 2.5% of that is going to get impacted by this pandemic. That itself is a very large number, almost equal to the GDP of India. So that's huge. To bring this down to India's context, I think it is largely disruptive. India's growth numbers, which I think got printed very recently, has put India at 3.1% growth rate for Q4 of FY20, I think, which is the slowest that India has grown in the last more than 6 years. And this also kind of reconfirms our belief that India was slowing down even before the pandemic broke out. And this pandemic has only magnified India's problem. We've also kind of revised our previous quarter's growth to significant downward revision has happened. So rating agencies have initially revised India's FY21 growth rates to the lowest figures that India has seen since the liberalization began in 90s. In fact, midway through the lockdown, government had announced economic package, and which again led to rating agencies recalibrate, and there were stark downward revisions which were made. And as we stand, I think the large rating agencies like CRISIL, Fitch, ICRA, or even some of the larger global banks like Goldman Sachs are putting India's growth rate for the next year or the continuing FY21 at -5%. That's a severe downgrade to what we used to be seeing a growth rate of 8% just 3 years back in the period of 17 to 19. I think the investment drivers of exports and investments have both turned negative, and they have turned negative for the last few quarters. If I were to summarize the impact on certain markets, we've all seen how equities have behaved, how FX markets have behaved, and how has debt markets behaved. But just to put things in perspective, on our equities markets, I think retraced, if I were to take Jan numbers as a benchmark, retraced some 37% before recouping to the current levels, which are still substantially 17% down. And this rally that we've seen witnessed of late is, that's my personal thought, but it's not fundamental driven, but it's liquidity driven. Across the central banks, globally, central banks have uh, announced packages, quantitative easings. So I think the liquidity is flowing to certain markets, and India is one of them, which is participating, I think, more than the rest. On the currency bit, I think we've had a significant depreciation in the currency. We started the year at some 71 odd levels. I think as we came midway through the pandemic, we were almost 8.5% down on the currency, which touched about 77, 30 as an all-time low. Only the silver lining has been the last week's FX reserve, which was announced by the government. We are almost $500 billion or slightly ahead of $500 billion of FX reserves. While the May trade data is yet to be announced, but one would suspect that current account would be largely positive. I think that's where it's getting factored in our FX reserves. It could also be that some of the FDIs, lumpy FDIs, have gotten absorbed by the Reserve Bank. And one could argue that despite having a large FX reserve, why is RBI still not able to contain the depreciation in the currency? Well, that could be, I believe it could be a deliberate move on the part of government to keep currency slightly at a depreciated level, because that gives you a buffer in an environment like this. We are already staring at a rating downgrade. Or just to take you a step back, Moody's downgraded India beginning of this month with an outlook to negative, and rating they've downgraded India to Baa3, which is I think the lowest grade in the investment space. If other rating agencies, which are Fitch and S&P, likely, I think the focus is now shifting on them if they follow the same. And if that happens, I think we are again staring at a huge FPI outflows, because that would mean India will become junk, one grade lower than the investment grade. But the timing of that is likely to be very, very difficult, because at the first step, these rating agencies will have to change their outlook to negative, and as the second step, it is downgrade of the rating. But you never know. So as I said, timing is going to be very, very difficult. Reserve Bank has reacted very, very positively as a response to this pandemic. They have been cutting interest rates very well in line with how globally central banks have been behaving. They have cut 70 plus 40, about 115 basis points in 2 cycles from the time that we broke out in this pandemic. Repo rates now stands at the lowest that we have seen, at 4%, and reverse repo at 3.5 odd percent. The outlook on inflation is again very, very benign. Again, it is largely because of the demand destruction. On medium term, I think RBI is going to be challenged by the conflicting objectives. One where we are staring at a lower growth rate, and as we get into the unlock phase, and in the medium term, we expect inflation to rise up. So I think RBI will have a very tough time balancing these two objectives. But our own view is there's still a scope of 225 basis points rate reduction from the current levels that we are. How much of that means to the liquidity, we'll have to wait and see. So these are some of the broad, matters in which we believe market has gotten impacted. If I were to summarize what are we going to see as a result of this, in the medium term, there are meaningful changes which are likely to happen, and this is which I believe is a healthcare spend increase, demand of moving digital channels across product services, investments in cloud and collaboration, communication to take care of higher number of employees working from home. There could be a possible labor shortage, which will again result into more automation, increased investments in hygiene products, and increased data consumption to
Sunil,
fuel some of the above. These
your
are,
video is not. Can just,
sorry.
yeah, good to go.
So net, what we are talking about big picture is formalization and pace of digitization is set to accelerate owing to this pandemic. It isn't that people are not adopting formalization and digitization, but with this pandemic, I believe that it's going to accelerate at least 10 times more rapidly than it would have happened otherwise. Government's intent for labor reforms, changing the threshold of MSME could further push the unorganized into the formal net. There is going to be a quantum jump into digitization or resources moving to work from home. Consumer companies are pushing deeper into digital channels. Education and I think education and entertainment are, I believe, here also you would expect the shift into digitized channel. I mean, the pace is going to get accelerated. While it is acknowledged that everybody is going to get impacted, but the impact is not going to be same across the sectors. There are some winners and there are going to be some losers, is what we believe, how these things will pan out. Once we open, probably some of the industries will not be same again. So idea is to remain as adaptive as possible. Times are changing. Things will see a major or sea change from what we have witnessed pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. There are still some unknowns, as in we don't know. As I said, situation is still evolving, is still fluid. We don't know whether deurbanization could happen. Will it result into larger shortage of workers or skilled laborers in urban areas? But those are some of the questions which I think experts are trying to figure out if that could be a reality. But there are early indicators which suggest that could happen. So these are some of the thoughts with which I'll just hand over to my colleague Appan, who will just get you through on some of the thoughts which companies in the MSME space should be adopting to stay afloat in these tough and unprecedented times.
Thanks, Sunil. Welcome all from my side, and thanks to the GoPro team for arranging this opportunity for us to connect with the MSME people. These are unprecedented times, as clearly described by Sunil, how it has impacted the globe. It has an impact on India. It is impacting everybody's life. It is impacting every individual. It is impacting every corporate. So definitely, across the value chain, our MSMEs are also impacted. Everywhere, everybody understands and believes that these are the very important lifelines for the Indian businesses. So considering what is happening right now, there are a lot of areas to ponder, but my belief is that there are a lot of positives also which we can work with, and somehow it will require a bit of a different paradigm. So in the current scenarios, what I believe is that we need to work for survival first, and then growth can be planned along with this. So I will be covering specifically on the MSME perspective two important points. What is the impact, which is more on a generic sense. Maybe every industry will have a specific impact, which can be discussed as and when we will take the question answer sessions. And what can be the action points from our side to take care of these impacts, and what we should be doing differently to ensure that we go through these times, have our survival scenario well covered, and then plan for growth along with it. So if I have to see the impact, I think the first point that we should be covering is the demand side. There are industries which will be catering to the essential part of the products, services, which we are already seeing that it is being these particular essential aspects of various products and services are being utilized by the people. Our services are being taken by the people. Yes, the volume can be different, but uh, even the category is also different. The way it has to happen. So if we have to see that essential commodities demand will continue, the industries related to that will have a benefit. The SMEs may diversify their products accordingly. Second is the discretionary expenses. If you see the discretionary part, whatever industry is associated with the discretionary part of the products or the services, it is having an impact, and it will have its impact over a period of time. Till what time this impact will continue, it's a bit difficult to tell as of now. But I believe over a period of time, this will have its own space. So this is where the demand side should be, looked into. If we go to this another part, which is supply. Now, supply has its own challenges at this point of time. There are various industries which is related to goods will have availability issues. There can be shortages of certain products, considering the dependency on imports, considering the dependencies on certain industries which are not able to produce to that particular level. And if we another part of the supplies will be the cost, which is the procurement prices. This may be a bit volatile, right? People will have the predictability in the earlier times. People used to have the predictability in the earlier times on these products, but considering the current scenario of the availability and the prices, so because of which the prices will have some of volatility which the MSMEs have to deal with. The third important aspect of the business will be cash flows. Right, people will have their impact on collections. The collections are getting delayed, and it may will have a further impact wherein people need to see how the collection needs to be managed better. In certain places, people have to, while they have to procure various products or services, they have to pay advances as far as the MSMEs are concerned. The third important aspect of the cash flow management will be the fixed expenses. At this point of time, people will have to relook at their fixed expenses, how they should be managing those particular aspects. So this is the broad impact in each and every industry, and as far as the MSMEs are concerned. Uh, when I was talking about the cash flows, I think important part is with respect to labors also. That availability of the labor will also be an important aspect which people have to work with, which will improve over a period of time as and when the time settles down. But as of now, it's a challenge. Now, considering we have thought through the impacts here, uh, if we specifically go into further, then how should MSMEs deal with it? So there should be certain action items that we should think through. What should be these action items that MSMEs should be working on? How should that help them during this particular point of time? I think the first important aspect is the efficiencies. So efficiencies in various quarters of the organizations, whether it is the operational efficiencies that needs to be really looked into. Now, by operational efficiencies means the production pattern, the procurement patterns. These patterns really needs to be uh, deeply looked into. Whatever has been done in the earlier times, considering those growth areas were there, people or the organizations will have opportunities to save there, to bring more efficiencies in the procurement and their logistics part. As I touched upon on the impact is on the fixed cost, but then that is also a management which needs to happen. We have been seeing that various MSMEs are you know are coming back and finding out how are they changing their fixed expenses to variable expenses. So these are the times when those thoughts really has to be looked into. The fixed expenses should be looked from a perspective how much is required with the current level of businesses, and how should these be taken care of. And as and when the business grows, those expenses can come back. Third is the marketing expenses. Lot of business have requirement of lot of marketing expenses, which needs to go through in terms of increasing their businesses. So those marketing expenses should be curtailed in a manner that it helps and take care of the current level of businesses. So these are the expenses, I should say the efficiencies which should be thought through. There can be lot other, if you go into details depending upon each industries, which we can specifically cover in the question answer sessions again. But just to cover the broader points, I have listed down in this particular manner. The other aspect which needs to be looked into is the liquidity. Very clearly, these are the times which have taught that liquidity from a business perspective is a very important one. So cash needs to be conserved, and similarly, there has to be certain patterns which have to be developed in businesses, wherein the cash has to be allocated for these times, and also in terms of uh, regular features also, that how come the cash can be conserved to take care of the businesses. Cash needs to be redeployed in the business. These are the times when people should look at infusing equity. Why I'm saying this, I understand this generally the SMEs and the MSMEs are the promoter-driven business. So bringing in equity at these points will help us to do that survival tactics, and those debt costs and all will be reduced, and as and when the business comes back, those debts can be further increased depending upon the levels of the business, which basically means that at these times the debt needs to be rationalized or needs to be looked at from a perspective of the business levels, which is a very important aspect, because this will help in reducing the cost, and also the liability on the businesses will be managed in a manner that it is as per the levels of the business. So the combination of the debt and equity is a very important aspect which businesses need to look into. These are the times when the equity should be brought in, and businesses should be taken through these survival modes. Another important aspect will be focusing on the collections. The whatever inefficiencies are there in the collection systems, every organization should be working towards is discussing with their buyers about the collection patterns and getting those liquidity in those, because these collections and will be bringing the cash, which will be the key. In another aspect which people have been doing it sparingly, but maybe they have to do it in a much more better manner of the certain safeguards which they have to manage. If you see, the working capital cycle is an aspect which people should be focusing on. They should be looking at how the working capital cycle can be reduced, right? In the current times, so they have to work towards all the terms and all, which I'll come in the next section, both on the debtors and the creditors side, to understand how their debtor cycles can be reduced and how can they manage the inventory just in time kind of a criteria basis. Because every business cannot do it, but definitely every business can work towards having an inventory level which is better than the earlier levels, so that the working capital cycle is reduced and the businesses can work on the lean working capital needs, which will really help the businesses to to get through this phase. And obviously when growth comes in, all these things can come back very well. We are nowhere suggesting that if the business required debt, the debt is available and that will be provided, but every business needs to look at from a perspective that what is the right need of the funds in the business and how the mix should be between debt and equity. Another aspect of the safeguards which I've tried to bring out is are the areas where the fluctuations are there, whether it is the commodity or whether it is the FX. We have, considering we are the bank part, we can talk about the FX hedging tools, which we have. I think Sunil will be taking you through that product manual when he will be taking it up. But as far as the hedging tools are concerned, people should be looking at a policy which will help them to ensure that the FX volatility and all can be managed. These are specifically for those businesses which have FX impact in their, or they have the FX underlying in their businesses. So these are the factors which the people should be working with. Another area which they should look into are the renegotiation at this point of time. Each and every aspect of their business should be renegotiated. All the terms which they have on their business, everybody is going through the same phase, and everybody understands. So everybody is trying to do that renegotiation, right? So long-term contracts which are there, which may be related to rentals, which may be related to various other aspects, should be relooked again. And considering these changing environments, these contracts should be discussed along with their other vendors or other suppliers, and people should work around on terms which are beneficial for the business. Go back to your suppliers, renegotiate the terms, and see what better aspects can be brought into the business, uh, whether liquidity can be brought in through that particular aspect also. Another is, uh, you know, debtor terms needs to be renegotiated, creditors terms need to be renegotiated. All aspects, whether it is related to production, logistics, sales, everything, every area renegotiation will be very much important. This will really bring out efficiencies, which will help the business to survive in these particular point of times. The other aspect which needs to be covered here is the diversification. People and the businesses should be working on various aspects as far as diversification is concerned. We have seen that, considering this has been a global impact, various supplies from various places have got impacted. People are dependent on China for supplies and all. There are various actions in the globe because of this pandemic. As a source for various materials, China may be impacted, and people may need to look at other suppliers here. So single supplier dependency should be really looked into. People should be working on having more suppliers, and this will also help having a price benefit aspect. Whichever industry the MSME is in, now they should look at diversification of their products and relate to the current terms, which is like, if we have seen that various companies are changing their patterns in terms of, even if they're into textiles and all, they have moved into certain COVID related products which have helped them to have some businesses and survive and create further line of businesses for them, which may be a growth pattern going forward also. So not only COVID related things, but a lot of other aspects of the businesses have come up during these particular point of times. Even if we have seen the companies developing the work from home facilities are getting benefited in these particular times. Similarly, I think every MSME should be looking into their businesses, and related products and services should be developed. Another aspect which comes into my mind is there, while you are diversifying, there is unutilized capacities lying. People should try to have synergies with other companies, and if required, then contract manufacturing can be another way of utilizing the facility and bringing in revenue to the business. So in a nutshell, what I'm trying to say is, all aspects of the businesses needs to be looked into with much more deep thought, with much more deep aspects, and each and every businesses should be looking into changing the terms, the way they are doing businesses now, and creating much more leaner and cost effective business. So with this, I just hand it over to Sunil again, so to take it with respect to the certain offerings that we have.
Thank you, Apan. So as a next step, I just want to take you guys through the offerings that we have and I'll do that very, very quickly. Idea is again not to bore you guys with a long, lengthy presentation, but we'll just take you through a quick offerings that Citi does for the MSME sector, and we'll open the floor for Q&A after that.
All right, I'm going to ask Ruby to share the presentation. Ruby, if you can just share the presentation and then we'll just take this through. For all the attendees, we have this small presentation right now, and then we'll be answering all the questions. So please post your questions, and we'll be taking one by one as soon as this presentation gets done.
Hi, can you see my screen? Is the presentation live?
You can see your screen, but the slides are not there visible yet.
Okay, just give me. Manmeet, can you try the presentation? It's there's an error at my end.
When the presentation starts, do you want to address one question which we have, which is about, we have one question from Mr. Amit. He speaks about how during these times, why is RBI increasing reserves by buying dollars? Is the general idea is to depreciate and therefore make India more export competitive? So what are your views on this?
Okay. Thanks, Amit, for asking this very relevant question. As I mentioned, that despite India crossing $500 billion of FX reserve, there are a lot of people asking the question that why is that currency continues to depreciate, and why is RBI not intervening at this point in time? I will take this in two parts. I think RBI intervened in FX markets. I think the intervention amount was close to $3 billion somewhere in March and early April, but that was not sufficient enough for currency to kind of stem the depreciation. Having said which, there are 2-3 things which I think the central bank needs to keep into mind. On a rolling 12-month basis, the intervention has already crossed 2% of the GDP. And the reason I say that is last year, RBI had to intervene very, very aggressively to stem the currency depreciation. As I mentioned earlier, that India had been already witnessing a slowdown. And there was this run on rupee, which was felt last year. Around that time, RBI, I think, defended the rupee level and had intervened very aggressively. So in a 12-month period, as I said, a rolling 12-month period, the intervention amount has already crossed 2% of the GDP. So there is a risk if we continue to kind of intervene in the market, there is a possibility of a comment being invited by US Treasury report, which kind of creates the rift between us and the US. You guys would know that US does not spare. I think they have been very, very vocal about China, saying that China is a currency manipulator. I mean, such kind of allegations have never come to India. But I think RBI will be mindful of that fact that we've already trending with that 2% GDP level. Secondly, I think in the times when we start to pick up the growth, a lower currency, or I say a depreciated level of currency, also act as a buffer when we try to reopen and try to go back on our growth path. And I'm hoping we start that journey in Q3 or thereabouts. So that's another factor which helps us. And again, in a time where all the currencies have taken a knock against the dollar, keeping the currency at an elevated level is not going to help our exporters because that renders our export competitiveness compared to markets like China or certain South Asian markets. And lastly, I think one reason which RBI will find merit in keeping the currency lower is again to guard, as I mentioned, Moody's have already downgraded India to Baa3, and if the remaining two rating agencies were to follow, that would entail a flow of FPI on both on debt and equities. So RBI obviously would be mindful of that and would be keeping certain reserves to contain flow of dollars from the country. So these are some of the factors which I think are going into this interplay of keeping currencies at a slightly depreciated levels vis-a-vis the foreign currency reserve, which I think used to be about 11 months of FX payments to the current level, which is I think in excess of 13 months. So we are sitting pretty in terms of our FX reserves. Now, does that answer your question, Amit?
All right, we have other questions also, which we'll take after the presentation. I have shared the presentation, so Sunil, you can start.
Sure. So, gentlemen, idea is again, as I said, to quickly let you through on Citi's footprints. I think the first slides, I mean, I am hoping the Citibank does not need an introduction. It's one of the largest financial sector, financial FDI investment in the country. I think the first branch was opened in 1902 in Calcutta. So we are almost 118 years into the country, and I think we take pride that not even a single dollar has been repatriated out of India in these 100 plus years of our operations in the country. We operate out of 35 branches, and we take pride that with the smaller footprints in the country, we are able to cover the length and breadth of the country through our superior technology offerings, superior product offerings, by which we are not bound by a physical presence into the country. The idea is obviously to restrict our conversation to the MSME space. So we want to let you know across the products used, be it on the corporate cards, be it on the credit cards, we are present. We are present in 19,000 plus MSME relationships with 33,000 entity accounts. We manage more than 800 corporate relationships and more than 6 lakhs of salary accounts. Moving on. So this is, I think, our thought process when we engage into any startup, any new incorporation, that we enter the company, we want to handhold the entity as they kind of enter the country or incorporate themselves with either equity. So idea is to handhold them with a current set of regulations, the regulatory filings, setup of the internal accounts, bank accounts, internal trade accounts, FX accounts, so on and so forth, established limits. And once the company is into there, is finding its foot, we help them out.
We'll just wait for a moment for him to join back. Upin, do you want to address the questions till Sunil joins in?
Yeah, we can take it.
Yeah. All right, great. So we have a question which says, with INR depreciating over the last couple of months, what are your thoughts on hedging for an importer specifically on a 3-month spectrum?
Considering considering the NR depreciation is going, but the factor is while the the INR is depreciating, as far as the hedging part is concerned, it's also related to the premium. Considering the premiums at this point of time are relatively, because the interest rate differential in the LIBOR and the Indian rate are limited, so the premiums are likely to be at a lower level. But I think it will more depend upon the importer's strategy, right? Uh, considering if they have the orders in hand at this point of time and they want to hedge it, then technically speaking, not the complete portion of the underlying should be hedged. It should be a policy. It cannot be one particular transactions that they need to keep as hedging. They should be regularly hedging approximately 33%, or depending upon their business, 33 to 50% uh, of their underlying should be hedged. As far as the view is concerned, I believe, considering the dollar availability in India and the underlyings in terms of uh, the imports and exports are at this point of time are subdued. I believe the dollar will be the dollar should be in the similar range. So hedging should be done as a policy for importers and not as a particular transaction.
All right. So continuing this discussion again on depreciation itself. There's another question which says, why has INR depreciated the least compared to other currencies such as Thai baht, ZAR, Rub, BRL? Do you have any like how are we supposed to peg, in terms of when it comes to other currencies?
I think I couldn't hear this properly. There is some disturbance coming in. Just give me a sec. Can you just repeat?
Yeah. All right. So just continuing the depreciation currency bit ahead, it says the question you have is, why has INR depreciated the least when when you compare it to other currencies such as Thai baht? Rupee? How do you want to express your opinions on that?
No, I think if you see in the earlier times, it's also a factor of the market sentiments. I think in the earlier years, India's growth story has been very much uh, taken well across the globe, and along with that, we have the underlying businesses also. But India was experiencing a slowdown uh, even before the COVID times, and when if you see in the last year's charts, the Indian depreciation of the currency has been much lower than the other currencies. But as and when the economy's challenges have started coming in, the that impact has come on the depreciation on the Indian currencies also. So I believe this is more a macroeconomic factor as a microeconomic factor. But with respect to the continuous depreciation, I think it will be range bound now, considering we have the reserves available. So there will be intervention at the right times, but obviously the underlines at this point of time are again not very much fixed, because businesses have taken a different direction. So this has to be cannot be looked at from a very long term perspective as a view. It should be really short term view which should be taken into account.
All right. We have another question which speaks about how are banks supporting MSMEs aligned to the various stimulus packages which are offered by RBI specifically.
No, I think there have been various measures which RBI has come out with, and along with that, the finance ministry has also come up with various schemes. Uh, as far as the moratorium of the interests are concerned, uh, I believe all the banks on the streets are supporting the customers. All the customers have been given those particular benefits. Uh, the SME businesses uh, are having that benefit of not making those interest payouts now. Thus the uh, cash flows, they can manage their cash flows well during this time. Secondly, with respect to that particular interest moratorium has again been extended by RBI from the first 3 months to the next 3 months, and that's where the banks are also supporting. In terms of the another actions with respect to few more schemes explained by the government, provided by the government, every bank is acting upon it. Certain banks have worked upon it. Certain banks are in the process of taking the approvals. I believe one that is very specific to the bank you are banking with. What are they doing about it? But what is what the feedback from the market is that every bank is working on this scheme, and this benefit will be given to the customers who are who are aspiring for it. And as far as specifically what banks are doing on their own, I believe internally, I can, considering the various discussions among various bankers, I cannot speak on all the bankers' behalf, but that's my personal view. People have taken views in terms of their policies differently. They, at this point of time, they are taking calls to support their customers, uh, even if they have to bend a bit backward in terms of their policies. And the support is being given by most of the banks to their MSMEs. But also, everybody needs to understand that these are the times when the business levels needs to justify those kinds of limits, and these MSMEs also needs to understand that for the financial system to continue working in a right spirit, those supports needs to be taken adequately, because if suppose the interest moratoriums kind of a scheme people are opting for, then I believe they should be opting it if the business demands really those schemes, right? Otherwise, I think it will be prudent to not to burden the businesses with the extra costs. And in terms of the other various aspects, I think barring the other the schemes given by the government, like our bank and various other banks are also supporting the customer in terms of their any requirement of limits and all at this point of time, uh, with uh, with full support. Whatever the customers are requiring, banks are ready to provide limits. I think liquidity and the credit availability is not a problem.
All right. We have Sunil here. Just have 5 more minutes, guys. Then we have to move to the second part of the session. So I just want to understand, because want to restart the presentation, we want to address the rest of the questions.
I think it will be better that we take the questions further, Sunil. I think with the in interest of time.
Yeah.
Sure,
All right.
I'm fine with that.
I think before we do that, I think we already have shared the mail ID where if the contact details on the chat.
Right.
Anybody who wants to have specific discussion on Citibank's offerings, people can reach out to there, and we will be most happy, and we'll really welcome those thought processes and the inquiries by the customers.
Great. All right. So I'm just going to address the rest of the questions. We're going to take 2 more questions, and so we have a question which talks about that a person is an exporter. How do they manage their debt when they're not even being paid by their own consignees?
Sunil, you want to take this?
Yeah. So if yeah, I'm aware of certain disruptions which have been caused by the pandemic, where customers are not able to pay on a timely manner, and there are companies who have hedged themselves against those receivables. I think it's a tough situation to be in, and because not receiving timely payments is kind of acting as a double whammy. One, the receivables are not coming, so all the hedge positions have to get cancelled, and that will be net settled. And secondly, yeah, it puts a bit of strain on the liquidity position. I think there's no best answers to these questions, but as Apan had mentioned, we have to have a line of credit availability at this point in time to to kind of wade through these liquidity problems, because as we move along to in Q3, there are a lot of disruptions and demand disruptions that we've seen across businesses. This is very, very, I mean, I've seen a flood of such customers where they are complaining of not being able to receive their receivables on a timely manner, or they are getting delayed beyond, I think, the time which which a company can bake in. So having alternate line of credit availability at this point in time is not a bad thing to do.
All right. So this is the question which was the answer was discussed earlier also on hedging. So we have Mr. Ashwini who is saying that it needs to clarify whether the 30 to 50% of hedging which was discussed was of account receivables or it was something else.
I will try and answer this question. So hedging again is a topic which is best addressed by the company in the sector in which they are operating, and the company's own philosophy around the entire risk mitigation. We never advocate a company to hedge the entire receivables at one point in time. The approach to take is obviously a disciplined one, and it has to be articulated well in the risk management document which the company has, or risk that a company is willing to assume. Having said which, it is not a tool by which companies should be looking to make money out of it, but because there is a risk which emanates in the companies operating in overseas markets by the nature of having an import obligations or export receivables. Those risks emanates into their businesses. Idea is to take a very pragmatic approach towards it. Now, the percentage of hedging is best left to the industry specifics. So there are IT firms, there are pharma firms who have long-term contracts, and where I've seen maximum hedge ratios which are as high as 60 to 70%. Vis-a-vis, there are companies in manufacturing sector where it drops down to say 40 to 50%. So again, there are no right or wrong answers to this. It all depends on the approach the company takes, but we always advocate to take a very disciplined approach and stick to that. So idea is not to punt on the market levels, because in these times markets are going to be volatile and they will react very sharply to the news flows coming in and to the geopolitical situation that we are currently facing in. So idea is to take a very disciplined approach and stick to it quarter on quarter, because again, we've done back testing analysis various times, being in the market for so many years. A disciplined approach always will give you a result which will be far superior than what you will see in a spot market. So if you follow on a particular approach and stick to it over a period of say 4 to 5 to 6 quarters, and then you go back and do testing, back testing, you'll yourself see that you'll be able to beat the spot market by at least a couple of basis points or even more.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Sunil, and thank you so much, Mr. Raman, for the insightful presentation. For all the attendees, if any questions left unattended, please feel free to share your questions. We'll be sharing the mail ID for Citibank as well with the recorded session. Now I'm going to hand over to Mr. Himanshu. All right. So we have Mr. Himanshu, who is the Vice President of Andromedia Sales and Distribution Private Limited. He has been working with Andromedia for over 15 years, and he is an expert at loan solutions. We welcome you, Mr. Himanshu. You can take the session forward.
Good afternoon. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Thank you, Citibank team, and thank you, Cogoport, for your valued inputs. And I would like to thank Manmeet and Ruby and their team to giving us an opportunity to present ourselves on this platform. Andromeda, I would like to introduce something on Andromeda. We are India's largest loan distributors, and we are into more on retail side of lending support to the clients and the borrowers. We have been in this trade for last 30 years, and we are amongst the top lending solution providers in the country. I would like to give a small, share a small presentation with you all for Andromeda. I'll just add the presentation, Ruby.
Himanshu, the way you presented your screen, we could see your screen. You just had to click on the PowerPoint presentation. If you can do the same procedure again.
I'll do that.
Yeah.
Is it visible?
Not yet. Yeah. Yeah. Now just click on the presentation at the bottom. I'm assuming that's the presentation. Yes. Yes, we can see your presentation.
So I'll clear?
Yes, perfectly fine.
So I would just introduce Andromeda. We started our operations in 1991. We are country's largest loan distributors. Mainly we deal into retail lendings, that is housing loans, loan against properties, overdrafts, and unsecured loans. We as an Andromeda are tied up with all private, multinational and NBFCs to help our clients in and assisting them in borrowings. We are present in almost all the metros and semi-metros of the country. We have our employee strength of 2,500 plus. We have our branches of 220 branches we have in, and we are present in 100 locations in India. During this COVID situation, we are helping our clients in getting the working capital gap filled in terms of raising unsecured loans, in terms of raising top-ups on their existing loans. We are offering best rates on home loan balance transfers. We are offering best rates on unsecured lendings, and that's how it is. So if a customer was having a housing loan from say XYZ NBFC and he was servicing a rate of 9% or 9.5%, we are offering them a shift to a good bank, a PSU bank or a private bank, and we are offering them rates in the range of 6.85 to 7% onwards. These are the few products that we work upon, and we help our clients in arranging loans through all these products. These are the current broad rates that are operating in the market for various products. We have also started working on the digital platform, and as the changes have happened due to this COVID scenario, we have tied up with couple of banks where we will be doing entire backward integration from our end. We will be logging in digital files from our platform to their platform, and we will ensure that there is adequate social distancing is maintained and there is no communication or paperwork and all involved. So it helps us a lot and helps the customers as well. Yeah, so this was a small glimpse of our services, and we can take questions if anybody has any question on their existing lendings and existing borrowings basically. And we can also help them in raising fresh funds if they require or some top-ups on their existing working capitals. We can help them on that.
Mr. Mashu, I would want you to stop sharing your screen.
I'll stop.
Right. Yes. All right. So I have this question, which just one second, I'll just scroll it through. All right. So as an MSME, the government, in order for all the industries, they need to pay their MSME vendors within 45 days, and they have a pending payment for over 5 to 6 months in last 1 year, especially. So, as someone who's an expert in loan solutions, how do you kind of give an advice for all the MSME people, MSME audience? How do they manage their cash flow?
So see, in current scenario, the working capital lines will be relooked by the existing lenders, and they will take a call as per the behavioral change in the market because of COVID. The industries those are affected because of this COVID. There are certain sectors which are heavily impacted. There are certain sectors there are who were previously impacted, and now they have been a very good sector in terms of preference by the banks. So depending on the client's profile and depending on their requirement, we can assist them how to cope up the bridge or the working capital gap through getting top-ups in their existing lendings or through working out some other solutions based on their untied collaterals, based on their investments and other things.
Okay. As we know that we have exporters and importers out
Yeah.
here. For them, they're saying that the finance in Europe, for example, is available at a very cheap rate.
Yeah.
So around 3 to 4%. How can Indian lenders compete?
See, as far as competition goes, we are not absolutely in line with the rates that are being offered globally. But yes, there are a lot of foreign currency lending products in which the rates are very competitive for importers and exporters. And based on their segment and based on their profile, based on their ratings, we can offer them a lot of things that can help them in bringing down their existing cost of funds.
But then these exporters, they are, or the companies are present in both the locations.
Yeah.
So what would you suggest for them
So,
when it
so
comes to
couple of banks have a product where they can fund the parent over here, and that those facilities can be used overseas, or the overseas parent can be funded there and those facilities can be used there. So that way they can capitalize on the cheaper rate of interest.
All right. And when it, I mean, this is a very direct question which I'm just going to ask as an exporter. How can you help them?
So see, if they are unable to raise funds through their existing working capital limits, then we come into picture. We can help them in getting loans on their untied collaterals, as I mentioned. That we have offerings through various banks. So certain bank is bullish on X sector and certain bank is bullish on Y sector. So we are the bridge between the bank and the borrower. We understand the profile of the borrower and we understand the appetite of the lending bank, and then we propose them the solution accordingly.
All right. This is the last question which I'm going to ask and we end the session up. What are your views on the Atmanirbhar package the government has?
And no, you are not audible. There is some sort of disturbance.
Can you hear me
Yeah,
now?
now I can hear you.
Yeah. What are your views on the Atmanirbhar package?
Which package? Atmanirbhar package.
Atmanirbhar. Yes.
Atmanirbhar package, rightly, very good question. In fact, we are also getting a lot of queries on this. So the 3 lakh crore that has been sanctioned under MSME COVID support loan, and the people are very curious to know how they will get this money and what is the criteria to avail this money. But what strengths we have and what things we have understood is the existing bank or the existing working capital lender will devise a short-term enhancement on their working capital, which could be in the range of 10 to 20% of their principal outstanding that was as on 29th Feb 2020. And based on that, they will enhance their working capital limit as per the support that has been offered by Finance Ministry to the extent of their current outstanding. And that loan will work in the fashion as they said that there would be a 12 months principal moratorium and it will be a straight support loan for next 4 years. So couple of PSU banks have already started providing these loans to their existing customers, like SBI, Bank of Baroda. Yesterday we came across an article where we saw that 16,000 crores have been already disbursed in the month of June by SBI, Bank of Baroda, and couple of other PSU banks to their existing customers.
All right. So just related to the same question, but before I pose the question, can I just request Mr. Upton to go on mute because I think the issue is being happening because of that. All right. So we have this last question, which is related to the Atmanirbhar package itself, which is why cooperative banks are not offering loans on MSME ECLGS scheme.
So see, I tell you, a lot of NBFCs are also struggling, a lot of cooperative banks are also struggling. So they also need to go through their internal balance sheet. They need to evaluate their internal liquidity position. And based on that, they will be able to offer additional facilities to their customers.